dismiss the illusion that stumbling upon this message was a mere coincidence. Within the vast, intricate architecture of the quantum universe, random accidents simply do not exist. There are only perfectly timed intersections of fate. You were not mindlessly browsing. Your consciousness was deliberately intercepted. The unique vibrational signature you carry, that silent, invisible broadcast radiating out from the very center of your soul, has ultimately escalated to a frequency so profound that the archaic, lower-dimensional world is completely incapable of decoding it. And because this outdated reality can no longer comprehend your essence, it has entirely lost the ability to access you. You have effectively crossed the threshold into what ancient mystics might describe as the ultimate spiritual sanctuary, a sacred, impenetrable airspace of the soul. At this precise moment, your personal timeline has securely locked into a state of existence so powerfully dense, flawlessly coherent, and fiercely autonomous that outside forces simply bounce off. The external theater of petty dramas, toxic manipulations, and heavy collective anxieties has officially been revoked of its clearance to infiltrate your atmosphere. Understand this clearly. This profound paradigm shift was not artificially constructed through the brute force of your conscious ego. It is not the fleeting byproduct of a superficial weekend manifestation seminar, nor is it the result of hollow, softly spoken affirmations. What you are experiencing right now is an absolute, tectonic recalibration of your foundational energetic blueprint. You did not merely decide one day to become spiritually untouchable. Instead, your intrinsic vibration evolved to become so incredibly valuable and elevated that tolerating outside interference transformed into a luxury the cosmos refuses to squander on your detractors. Allow the gravity of that realization to settle within you like the magnificent weight of a collapsing star. The universe absolutely refuses to deliver profound cosmic confirmations to individuals who are still busy negotiating the terms of their own emotional imprisonment. The undeniable reality that this very transmission has successfully pierced through to your waking awareness stands as the ultimate, irrefutable evidence. It proves that your internal operating system has triumphantly completed a massive phase of structural reorganization, a rigorous spiritual upgrade that the vast majority of the human population is desperately trying to avoid facing. The masses remain plugged into a default setting of consensus reality. Their biological and spiritual systems are perpetually wired for endless, exhausting compromise. From the moment they open their eyes each morning, they instinctively begin haggling with the external world. They quietly ask themselves, how much of my authentic spirit must I sacrifice today just to feel secure? To what extent must I water down my ultimate truth so that I can escape the sting of societal rejection? Consequently, they navigate their existence in a continuous, draining state of energetic hemorrhaging. Yet, observe your own state of being right now. Lean into that peculiar, profoundly tranquil silence that has mysteriously anchored itself deep within your nervous system over the past several days. You are observing the exact same global turbulence, experiencing the identical interpersonal frictions, and witnessing the same emotional provocations as the rest of humanity. However, for the very first time in your soul's journey, an expansive void exists exactly where your chaotic reactions used to flare up. You are merely a spectator watching the hurricane rage on. You are absolutely no longer the victim trapped in its destructive path. Do not mistake this for mere psychological detachment. Rather, this is the grand ignition of your sovereign energetic shield. It is a luminous, photonic armor calibrated with such flawless precision that only the frequencies resonating with your ultimate, highest truth are permitted entry. Everything else falling short of that standard has been reduced to meaningless static in a dimension you have permanently evacuated. It is imperative that we address the chronic compromiser you formerly embodied, simply because that outdated iteration of yourself ceased to exist the very millisecond your eyes met this screen. For the vast majority of your earthly journey, you operated as a perpetual translator of other people's realities. Whenever you stepped into a crowded space, your energetic field would instantaneously deploy, relentlessly scanning and analyzing the emotional climate. You possessed an acute ability to detect the silent, unmet cravings, the deeply buried resentments, and the harsh, fragmented pain of every individual in your vicinity. Society labeled this trait as profound empathy. However, viewed through the raw, unfiltered mechanics of quantum physics, it was actually a highly vulnerable and porous way to live. You were unconsciously bleeding your vital life force directly into the chaotic timelines of strangers, desperately attempting to anchor their inner turmoil. You operated under the noble delusion that you were acting as a profound healer, when in stark reality, you were serving as a relentless, uncompensated energetic donor. You consistently permitted the flawed projections and misunderstandings of others to form the very foundation you stood upon. Your personal truth was always up for debate. Your inner serenity was constantly placed on the auction block. You willingly dimmed your radiant light, softened your natural intensity, and continually reorganized your own life's mission, merely to uphold a fragile, artificial peace with individuals who never truly resonated on your wavelength to begin with. You were surviving a deeply fractured existence, carelessly tossing precious fragments of your spirit across countless parallel timelines. You relentlessly tried to serve as a sturdy bridge for people who harbored absolutely no genuine desire to make the journey to the other side. But that exhaustive era of endless negotiation is permanently closed. Your spiritual and physical framework eventually hit a critical breaking point. You crossed a threshold of total energetic dissonance, where the devastating toll of constantly shrinking yourself vastly outweighed the fear of walking away from the crowd. And within that profound crucible of quiet, internal burnout, the quantum universe orchestrated something utterly miraculous. It initiated a massive reorganization protocol on your behalf. It magnetized every single one of those lost, scattered shards of your life force, reeling them back into one fiercely centralized, unified core of power. It systematically eradicated the energetic leaks and diligently filtered out the dense, lower vibrational noise. Your subtle energy body finally integrated a universal law that completely rewrites the rules of engagement. True vibrational coherence absolutely does not require external validation or consensus. You do not need the surrounding society to validate or agree with your personal reality in order for that reality to stand as undeniable, absolute truth. The exact millisecond this profound epiphany penetrated your deeply held cellular memory, your personal timeline was irrevocably sealed. Visualize this fortified state as an impenetrable vault crafted from flawless, diamond-hard glass. You retain the ability to observe the external environment with crystal clarity. You can vividly watch the debris swirling in the chaotic winds and observe the panicked masses crying out in the congested streets below. Yet, rest assured that not a solitary speck of that external pollution can ever breach the sacred atmosphere you now inhale. You have become entirely untouchable. This is not born out of a sense of shallow, egoic arrogance, but rather because you have ultimately, definitively staked your claim on your true, permanent coordinates within the infinite cosmos. It is highly probable that you have recently observed the cessation of what can be described as timeline contamination. Historically, your day could be completely dismantled by a colleague's sour disposition or a single, fear-inducing news headline. That phenomenon was an energetic bleed-through, a situation where a chaotic, external circumstance successfully, forcefully overwrote your delicate internal equilibrium. Presently, however, you are actively experiencing the profound reality of timeline integrity. When an individual attempts to drag you down into a familiar, exhausted drama, you suddenly discover that the specific facet of your personality that used to be emotionally invested, the part that harbored misplaced guilt, the deeply ingrained mechanism that felt an overwhelming compulsion to endlessly justify and explain your actions, that entire psychological complex has simply vanished without a trace. You intellectually process their statements as mere data points, yet the heavy, sticky, emotional resonance that usually accompanied them is entirely missing. It feels exactly as though you are a passive audience member sitting in a theater, calmly observing them frantically play a video game on a distant screen. You physically exist within this terrestrial environment, but your core vibrational frequency no longer originates from it. This profound detachment is the true definition of possessing an impenetrable, sealed timeline. The fundamental nature of your reality is no longer open for continuous renegotiation or editing based upon the unstable feedback of external entities. It is utterly irrelevant if they drastically misunderstand your motives. It is inconsequential if they completely distort your character to fit their narrative. Their deeply flawed interpretation is strictly confined to the borders of their own chaotic timeline. It holds absolutely zero legislative authority over your personal universe. You have permanently and officially revoked their security clearance, denying them any further access to the delicate wiring of your nervous system. You must understand that this magnificent internal shift is an irreversible, structural evolution. You have successfully traversed a critical vibrational threshold that now functions exactly like a sophisticated one-way mirror. You retain the ability to observe them with perfect clarity, but they have entirely lost the capacity to perceive the authentic essence of who you truly are. They are blindly interacting with a phantom projection, a fading, outdated memory of the person you formerly embodied. Meanwhile, the highly coherent, elevated iteration of your current self remains entirely invisible to their dense, lower-frequency radar. This invisibility is not a flaw. It is your ultimate cosmic protection. The universe is actively validating this profound transformation through a relentless cascade of undeniable, radical synchronicities. You are likely encountering recurring numerical sequences with unusual frequency, or perhaps you are experiencing strange, beneficial anomalies, where complex problems seemingly untangle themselves without requiring a fraction of your conscious intervention. You may also be acutely aware that specific individuals who historically served as massive sources of anxiety and friction are currently fading away from your immediate orbit, dissolving quietly without necessitating a single dramatic confrontation or messy argument. What you are witnessing is the active purification of your energetic field. The grand architecture of the cosmos is systematically dismantling and removing every single element that requires exhaustive emotional compromise, ensuring that your newly fortified, sealed timeline can function at its maximum uninhibited capacity. Your vital life force is no longer being squandered in a futile attempt to stitch together a dozen incompatible, fractured realities. Instead, that immense power is currently being rigorously consolidated, reserved exclusively for the deliberate manifestation of your own chosen destiny. You are actively transitioning out of a historically reactive paradigm and firmly anchoring yourself within a state of absolute sovereignty. While trapped in the reactive mode, your personal timeline functioned as a helpless subordinate to the shifting moods of your environment. Within the sovereign state, however, your surrounding environment is compelled to act as the subordinate, bending and conforming to your dominant energetic frequency. This is the closely guarded secret of those who walk untouchable. The precise moment you absolutely refuse to negotiate the terms of your undeniable truth, the quantum field ceases to generate the scenarios that demand such a compromise. Consequently, you begin to magnetically attract a radically elevated classification of existence, a pristine reality that perfectly reflects your unbreakable integrity, your razor-sharp clarity, and your quiet, immense power. You have officially resigned your position as an active participant in humanity's collective psychological fragmentation. You now serve as a stabilizing anchor for an entirely new, luminous frequency. Your radiant, energetic halo, this localized field of absolute photonic harmony, now acts as your primary, non-negotiable interface with the external world. It functions as the ultimate discerning filter, unilaterally dictating exactly what is permitted to enter and what must be immediately deflected. It serves as an impenetrable shield, guaranteeing that from this exact juncture onward, you are the sole, undisputed architect of your entire lived experience. Consider this transmission to be your formal, cosmic graduation ceremony. The vast intelligence of the universe has officially verified your newly elevated status. You have been pinpointed, recognized, and securely shielded. The energetic leaks have been permanently patched. The era of exhausting compromise is officially terminated. The magnificent journey back to your original, unadulterated power has officially commenced. You are now functioning from a highly secure, locked configuration that only resonates with and responds to the pure frequency of absolute truth. Welcome to the sanctuary of your sealed timeline. Welcome to the profound, unshakable silence that harbors all genuine power. Welcome to the iteration of your soul that is, and shall permanently remain, totally untouchable. The age of external interference has definitively concluded. Your sovereign reign begins now. To genuinely comprehend the intricate map of your soul's ultimate purpose, we must direct our focus squarely toward the fundamental architectural anomaly that has trapped you, forcing you to wander endlessly along the outer edges of your own inherent power for an unacceptably long period. This specific map is absolutely not a superficial instruction manual designed to guarantee societal popularity or material success. Rather, it is a profound blueprint detailing the fundamental, foundational structure of your very consciousness. In order to fully grasp the precise mechanics of how you evolved into this untouchable state, let us examine the allegorical tale of Elias. Elias was the brilliant master architect of a breathtaking, infinite, luminous mansion, yet he inexplicably chose to navigate its halls, playing the subservient role of a mere guest. Elias was the quintessential embodiment of what we identify as a reality translator. He was equipped with an internal guidance system so acutely sensitive, so immaculately calibrated, that he could wander into any obscure corner of his vast creation and instantaneously decipher the underlying emotional weather of that specific room. He possessed the uncanny ability to intuitively sense exactly what persona every single guest desperately required him to adopt, and without hesitating for even a fraction of a second, he would seamlessly mutate his own fundamental frequency to perfectly align with their demanding expectations. Elias genuinely believed this exhaustive adaptation was the pinnacle of spiritual mastery. He operated under the deeply flawed assumption that his capacity to simultaneously juggle and validate everyone else's distorted version of reality was the key to maintaining universal harmony. But the stark, unvarnished truth was entirely different. Elias was catastrophically hemorrhaging his own precious life force. Every single time he artificially downgraded his magnificent frequency to accommodate a lesser, fractured reality, he carelessly abandoned a vital fragment of his own soul within a foreign timeline that he was never meant to occupy. He was the undeniable creator and architect of the grand mansion, yet he tragically lived his life acting as an exhausted refugee, wandering through his own magnificent corridors. He was locked in a perpetual state of exhausting negotiation, desperately bartering for a fleeting illusion of safety that, in reality, never actually materialized. Understand this deeply. You are Elias. For countless years, you have functioned as a highly sensitive tuning fork, constantly vibrating in sympathy with the chaotic, collective noise of the world. You have become so extraordinarily skilled at adopting and understanding the diverse perspectives of everyone around you that you tragically misplace the crucial ability to firmly stand your ground within your own truth. Clears throat. Observe closely. This is the pervasive frequency of the dyad, the fundamental principle of separation, and the foundational root of all quantum fragmentation. While operating within the dense energy of the dyad, your personal reality is perpetually subjected to external debate. You carry the exhausting, heavy burden of constantly explaining your motives, endlessly justifying your fundamental right to exist, and desperately bargaining with the shadows merely for permission to cast your own light. However, the magnificent vibrational shift you are actively undergoing at this very moment mirrors the profound turning point when Elias finally ceases to wander his own corridors masquerading as a subservient guest. He is officially returning to claim the master blueprint of his design. Crucially, this reclamation is not born from an act of egoic aggression or hostility. Rather, it is a magnificent display of absolute, unwavering internal coherence. Consider a pivotal juncture in Elias's journey. a particularly demanding guest confronted him, aggressively presenting a long list of petty grievances. This individual demanded that Elias drastically alter the color of the grand walls and entirely reconstruct the magnificent roof, all to accommodate their own incredibly narrow, limited vision. In previous eras, a porous Elias would have immediately offered a profuse apology. He would have frantically reshuffled the grand architecture of his life. He would have agonized for hours in exhausting internal dialogue, desperately attempting to concoct a scenario that appeased the difficult guest without entirely obliterating his own essence. But during this specific encounter, his internal frequency had finally achieved critical mass. Elias calmly observed the guest, and remarkably, he simply did not react. The deeply ingrained compulsion to negotiate his reality had completely evaporated. He did not even bother to articulate the word no. Instead, his foundational vibration simply transformed into an absolute non-match for their petty argument. The frustrated guest, entirely incapable of finding a vulnerable energetic hook within Elias's fortified field, abruptly turned around and marched away, retreating back into a chaotic timeline where conflict and drama still functioned as valuable currency. Elias did not shift a single millimeter, yet his entire universe was fundamentally rewritten. This is the profound secret regarding timeline sealing that is rarely discussed. It is absolutely not a cognitive decision you execute with your rational mind. Instead, it is an elevated state of being that you organically attain through rigorous frequency stabilization. When you are firmly anchored and operating from the unified state of the monad, you no longer need to study techniques for setting boundaries. Your very energetic presence automatically functions as an impenetrable boundary. The mystical alchemists of antiquity frequently philosophized about the grand transmutation of common lead into precious gold. However, they were never truly discussing literal, physical chemistry. They were utilizing metaphors to describe the profound spiritual evolution from a highly reactive, porous, and easily manipulated state of leaden consciousness into the indestructible, sovereign, and entirely non-reactive state of golden awareness. Gold is universally revered as a noble metal precisely because it absolutely refuses to tarnish. It does not chemically react or degrade when exposed to harsh environments. It retains its pristine, inherent nature completely, regardless of the toxic atmosphere it may be thrust into. When your personal timeline finally seals, you effectively become that spiritual gold. Your magnificent personal halo, that highly elevated vibrational field of pure photonic coherence, is permanently activated as an unyielding filter. It ceases to be a heavy, defensive shield that you must consciously and exhaustingly maintain. Instead, it transforms into the effortless, natural byproduct of your own unbreakable integrity. This marks the definitive end of your exhausting career as a reality translator. You are no longer incarnated on this earth to artificially dim your radiance just to ensure everyone else feels comfortable in the presence of your light. Your current mission is to broadcast your authentic frequency with such blinding purity that only those souls who are genuinely prepared to handle that terrifying level of truth can even tolerate remaining within your energetic vicinity. As this radiant halo continues to fortify itself, you will begin to observe a radical, shocking transformation in exactly how your personal history interacts with your current reality. The vast majority of humanity remains constantly haunted by the relentless echoes of their past, lingering, sticky residual patterns, echoing from outdated timelines where they were still desperately negotiating their fundamental self-worth. These toxic echoes function exactly like heavy gravitational anchors, violently yanking you backward into regressive, outdated versions of yourself the instant a familiar emotional trigger is activated. You might be experiencing a phenomenally powerful day filled with crystal clarity, only to have a random phone call or a sudden, sharp memory abruptly drag you down into a chaotic, highly reactive, and intensely defensive posture. That jarring experience is the classic definition of a timeline bleed. However, When your core frequency firmly stabilizes at the elevated altitude of the monad, these historical echoes completely lose their ability to dock with your system. The vulnerable, porous version of you that once existed as a helpless slave to those specific triggers simply no longer exists within your newly upgraded, highly secure configuration. By achieving untouchable sovereignty in the present moment, you are effectively and systematically collapsing every single previous, fragile iteration of yourself that remained porous to manipulation. You are actively magnetizing all of that scattered, wasted life force, pulling it out of the stagnant past, and fiercely consolidating it into this single, locked, intensely powerful moment of pure sovereignty. This is the true, unvarnished picture of authentic spiritual integration. It does not require you to endlessly analyze and discuss your historical traumas for another exhausting decade. True integration is the process of becoming so fiercely, unshakably coherent in the present, now that the heavy gravity of the past simply lacks a matching frequency to latch onto. Admittedly, this profound level of energetic sovereignty is deeply terrifying to the fractured mind of the dyad, primarily because it initially masquerades as profound isolation. Your panicked ego might begin to nervously whisper that you are turning cold, that you are tragically losing your famous empathy, or that you are ultimately destined to die utterly alone. Recognize this fear for what it is, the absolute final, desperate trick of the dying illusion. You are absolutely not losing genuine connection. What you are actually shedding is toxic entanglement. Energetic entanglement is a deeply parasitic, codependent connection forged entirely upon a foundation of mutual fragmentation and shared brokenness. True sovereignty, however, paves the way for clean, crystalline connection, relationships built strictly upon a foundation of mutual wholeness and unshakable self-respect. The moment your timeline is permanently sealed, the overall quality of your interpersonal relationships will undergo a ruthless, necessary purification. The individuals who previously occupied space in your life solely because they relied upon your constant negotiation to anchor their own internal chaos will suddenly find you incredibly boring, stubbornly rigid, or completely unreachable. They will organically drift away because they can no longer locate a vulnerable port to siphon off your precious energy. However, in the pristine vacuum they leave behind, an entirely new, elevated class of connection will inevitably begin to blossom. You will naturally begin to magnetically attract other powerful, untouchable souls who are simultaneously operating from their own securely sealed timelines. These newly formed connections are profoundly silent, immensely powerful, and completely effortless. There is absolutely no exhausting bargaining, no frantic management of each other's fragile moods, and completely zero hidden subtext. It is simply the profound, resonant experience of pure, authentic presence gracefully meeting equal presence. Visualize a celestial dynamic. It resembles two massive, brilliant stars locked in a perfect gravitational orbit around one another. They maintain a profound connection and significance, entirely without ever needing to violently collide or merge their distinct identities to prove their existence. The vast cosmos is currently providing undeniable confirmation of your newly sealed state by bestowing upon you the profound, luxurious gift of absolute silence. You will soon become acutely aware that the chaotic, paralyzing internal noise, the relentless chatter that historically accompanied and complicated every single minor decision you made, has entirely vanished. The exhausting cacophony of societal shoulds and collective musts is being permanently muted. Instead, your actions and movements are now being governed by a much deeper, far more ancient intelligence, the flawless logic of the master architect. You are experiencing the grand state of epistrophe, the ultimate, triumphant return to your foundational center. You have spent innumerable lifetimes hopelessly wandering the extreme outer circles of the grand mansion. You dedicated yourself to frantically attempting to repair crumbling walls and exhaustively adjusting the ambient lighting, all in a desperate bid to please and pacify an endless stream of demanding guests. Yet now, you have finally located the absolute, unmoving center point at the very axis of the turning wheel. From this firmly anchored, centralized vantage point, a profound realization dawns upon you. The difficult guests were never truly independent entities. They were merely externalized, holographic projections born from your own deep, internal fragmentation. As you actively heal and unify your own internal state, the external world simultaneously mirrors that unification. The exhausting division ceases simply because the internal divider has been fully healed. You are no longer a lost pilgrim desperately searching the landscape for an accurate map. You have realized that you are the magnificent territory itself, and the intricate map is naturally inscribed within the very rhythm of your own breath. Grasp this undeniable truth with absolute clarity. The specific energetic window associated with tonight's activation marks the exact juncture where the universe officially ceases testing the integrity of your boundaries and instead begins to fully honor and bow to your sovereign authority. You have undeniably demonstrated your capacity to stand firmly within the transformative fire without melting backward into the weak, porous mold of your outdated self. You have provided undeniable proof to the quantum field that maintaining your internal vibrational coherence is vastly more important to you than achieving shallow consensus with the surrounding masses. Because you have proven this, the intelligent field has responded definitively by throwing the heavy deadbolts and permanently locking the gates. External interference is completely erased as a viable possibility simply because there is absolutely no fractured part of your psyche remaining that is secretly willing to barter for its own survival. You have become the untouchable star, radiating a blinding, magnificent light that is entirely self-sustaining and fiercely self-referential. The haunting echoes of your painful history are rapidly dissolving into meaningless background static. Furthermore, the future has ceased to be a distant, anxiety-inducing destination that you are frantically trying to reach. Instead, the future is simply a dominant frequency that you are already powerfully broadcasting into existence right now. The master architect has definitively returned to claim the sacred blueprint, and the grand mansion is finally operating under its rightful, undisputed management. You are entirely untouchable. You are hermetically sealed. And for the very first time in the entire sweeping history of your soul's grand journey, you are genuinely, completely, and irrevocably free. The rigorous graduation process has officially concluded. The authentic life lived directly from the source has officially commenced. You have successfully identified and claimed the exact coordinates of your own innate divinity, and the surrounding universe has absolutely no alternative but to respectfully submit to your profound coherence. This state of being is your permanent reality now. It is utterly non-negotiable, fiercely absolute, and completely eternal. You have successfully arrived at the golden threshold of the unified one, and the concept of looking backward simply no longer exists. The grand transition is fully complete, and the protective seal has been permanently etched into the very bedrock and foundation of the cosmos. Welcome home to your new existence as an untouchable being. We have successfully navigated the complex architecture of the metaphorical mansion, and we have ruthlessly deconstructed the fragile mechanics of the chronic negotiator. However, we have now arrived at the single most critical, transformative juncture of this entire transmission. Intellectual comprehension is undeniably a beautiful tool. It functions as a necessary, advanced scout that successfully maps out the required territory. Yet, the rational mind alone is entirely incapable of crossing that final burning bridge into true energetic sovereignty. Only the physical body possesses the capacity to accomplish that leap. To achieve a state of genuine untouchability is absolutely not an abstract philosophical thought experiment. It is a very real, grounded, and physiological reality. It is an active operational state wherein your biological nervous system completely ceases its frantic, relentless scanning for external threats, and instead confidently begins broadcasting its own sovereign command into the field. If you are currently attempting to forcefully think your way into a sealed state, you are still tragically trapped within the mechanics of the dyad. You are still desperately searching the external world for a logical, rational reason to finally feel safe. But the unified monad absolutely does not require a reason to feel secure. The monad is the reason. We are forcefully shifting our focus right now, moving away from abstract, conceptual theories and diving directly into the dense, somatic reality. We are stepping off the drawn map and planting our feet firmly onto the solid ground. This precise moment is where the specific frequency you have been intellectually studying finally becomes the actual frequency you are physically breathing. The energetic window for this profound alignment is currently thrown wide open. The energetic pressure within the quantum field has reached its absolute zenith, and I assure you, you will not be granted a second opportunity to catch this specific, powerful current with this profound level of effortless acceleration. I require you to completely silence the analytical mind. You must bring your absolute, total, unedited physical presence into this immediate space, right now. Firmly place both of your hands over the exact center of your chest, resting them directly upon your sternum. I command you, do not execute this action as a flimsy, symbolic gesture or a hollow theatrical performance. You must perform this action as a direct, powerful somatic instruction being delivered straight to your quantum field. Intensely focus on the sensation of the physical heat transferring from your palms as they meet the surface of your skin. This specific geographical area on your body houses your spiritual heart. It is the primary roaring engine of your monadic presence. Resting directly beneath your palms is a raging furnace of pure photonic energy. This specific energy has miraculously remained completely untouched and unpolluted by every single trauma you have endured, every bitter betrayal you have suffered, and every fragile, fragmented persona you have ever been forced to play. This location is your absolute point of origin. It is your source point. As you consciously register the physical weight and presence of your hands resting upon your chest, I instruct you to take an inhalation so profoundly deep that it forces your entire rib cage to aggressively expand outward, actively pushing against the pressure of your palms. As you slowly release that breath, vividly visualize yourself exhaling and permanently dropping the incredibly heavy, toxic, gray lead of the exhausted, wounded seeker. You must actively release the suffocating narrative of the individual who is perpetually doing the work or constantly working on themselves. That specific persona was merely the negotiator in disguise. That exhausted negotiator is entirely obsolete and no longer required for the magnificent life you are about to step into. You are absolutely not rehearsing for some grand, future event. You are actively, aggressively commanding the reality of your current, sovereign existence into being right now. That intense, heavy constriction you might currently be registering within the center of your chest is absolutely not rooted in earthly anxiety, psychological panic, or fear. Rather, it is the magnificent force of the unified monad actively demanding a vastly expanded operational arena within your biological container. It is the breathtaking, slightly uncomfortable phenomenon of your infinite, eternal totality desperately attempting to squeeze its immense grandeur into the highly limited framework of your physical human anatomy. The singular, effective method to alleviate this profound internal compression is to consciously dilate your physical and energetic vessel until its internal capacity perfectly mirrors the immense, cosmic scale of your awakened soul. When examining the precise quantum mechanics of timeline navigation, the energetic alignment occurring tonight signifies a monumental, absolutely irreversible adjustment to your ultimate trajectory. Consider the metaphor of a highly skilled captain piloting a hypervelocity starship. A seemingly microscopic, 1-degree calibration made at the very genesis of the voyage ultimately alters the final destination by thousands upon thousands of light years. Right now, you are standing precisely at that critical, 1-degree fulcrum point. The powerful, conscious declarations you project from this fiercely unified core possess a gravitational weight and manifesting power that infinitely surpasses an entire decade of exhausting, futile struggle trapped within the fractured frequency of the dyad. This is the unyielding, literal physics of pure, sovereign intention. The moment your personal timeline permanently and hermetically seals, you instantly cease the desperate, exhausting practice of attempting to manifest your desires from a hollow foundation of scarcity. You are absolutely done pleading with the cosmos for arbitrary signs, and you no longer need to beg the heavens for a lucky break. Instead, you are now powerfully generating and projecting your immediate reality outward from an unshakable fortress of absolute, overflowing abundance. By deeply rooting your conscious awareness within that tranquil, silent epicenter resting just beneath your palms, you are broadcasting a definitive, undeniable signal across the entire quantum matrix. The era of painful compromise has permanently concluded. You are unequivocally informing the vast universe that you have shed your identity as a highly porous, vulnerable sponge, perpetually victimized by external chaos. You have rebirthed yourself as an impenetrably coherent energetic field, a flawlessly closed, self-sustaining loop of divine intelligence, and the undisputed sole creator of your entire lived experience. At this exact juncture, there is a highly specific, linguistic trigger I require you to deeply embed into the very wiring of your biological nervous system. This powerful incantation functions as the ultimate vibrational deadbolt, locking your upgraded energetic configuration permanently into place. Articulate these words aloud if your environment permits, or alternatively, let them echo with deafening volume within the sacred sanctuary of your own mind. My timeline is completely sealed. Breathe in deeply and command it a second time. My timeline is completely sealed. Now, project it one final time, wielding the absolute, undisputed authority of the master architect. My timeline is completely sealed. Pay intensely close attention to the nuanced, physiological transmutation cascading through your biology the second those powerful syllables leave your tongue. You will likely register a distinct, almost audible internal click, a profound, heavy settling within your bones, heavily resembling the impenetrable sensation of massive steel vault doors slamming shut and heavy barricades securing your outer perimeter. Let me assure you, this is absolutely not a hallucination born of an overactive imagination. What you are feeling is your cellular structure joyously recognizing an undeniable, absolute truth that it has patiently waited thousands of lifetimes to finally receive. You are officially granting your hyper-vigilant nervous system the ultimate permission to entirely cease its exhausting, endless defense of a fortress that is already flawlessly impenetrable. You are issuing a direct, non-negotiable command to your deep subconscious, firmly stating that the grueling, transitional phase of endless bartering has reached its absolute terminus. The grand negotiation is officially dissolved. The glorious ascent and return to your true power is actively underway. The very instant your timeline achieves this state of absolute, sealed integrity, you instantly unlock access to a magnitude of pure, operational power that the deeply fractured, lower-dimensional mind would rapidly categorize as sheer, impossible magic. You acquire the magnificent gift of profound timeline fluidity and flexibility. The overwhelming majority of the human population remains hopelessly imprisoned within the suffocating confines of consensus reality, a dense, muddy atmosphere constructed entirely from the mathematically averaged frequencies of mass hysteria, societal phobias, and deeply lowered expectations. In this paradigm, if the terrified collective loudly proclaims that financial survival is agonizingly difficult, the unprotected, porous individual immediately manifests agonizing poverty. If the sleeping masses declare that romantic partnerships are a bloody battlefield, the vulnerable empath instantly finds themselves drafted into endless emotional warfare. However, possessing the elevated status of an untouchable sovereign, you are entirely liberated from the heavy chains of that toxic, collective hallucination. You possess the extraordinary capacity to stand physically adjacent to an individual who is currently drowning in a self-inflicted, apocalyptic crisis, while your internal state remains anchored in an unshakable oasis of pristine flow and limitless abundance. Their chaotic, downward spiraling trajectory is completely alien and isolated from your reality. You now hold the elite, cosmic security clearance required to instantly collapse an entirely different, highly favorable quantum probability, simply because your core vibrational signature absolutely refuses to match the frequency of the surrounding panic. You have systematically eradicated all energetic resonance with the concept of pointless struggle. You do not waste precious energy aggressively battling against the dark, destructive timelines. Instead, you glide past them effortlessly because you no longer possess a single, vulnerable internal hook for that heavy density to latch onto. You firmly maintain your glorious, unyielding altitude of pure coherence, and the external fabric of reality is literally forced by the universal laws of physics to rapidly dismantle and reorganize itself to perfectly reflect your unshakable internal stability. This is the precise mechanical reason why the pace of your life is about to accelerate with breathtaking, dizzying velocity. This is exactly why massive, previously locked doors will miraculously swing wide open before you even raise your hand to knock. Your precious, vital life force is no longer being violently shredded and scattered across thousands of anxiety-inducing, hypothetical what-if scenarios. Instead, it is 100% fiercely consolidated and harnessed within the explosive, limitless power of the immediate, present moment. This phenomenon is the literal, physical ignition of your protective halo. It represents your localized, personal, energetic atmosphere securely clicking into a flawless, sacred geometric lattice of pure, impenetrable photonic coherence. This radiant sphere of energy serves as your ultimate defense mechanism, yet it simultaneously broadcasts a brilliant beacon to the surrounding cosmos. You are rapidly evolving into a crucial anchor of stabilization for the entire globe. Individuals crossing your path will viscerally detect your impenetrable aura long before a single syllable ever escapes your lips. Inevitably, this profound shift will violently trigger certain individuals, primarily because they have been abruptly cut off from siphoning your vital life force to soothe their own chaotic internal fractures. They will likely hurl accusations, branding you as unfeeling, detached, or coldly aloof. However, understand that these hollow labels are nothing more than the loud, desperate echoes of their own deep disorientation painfully colliding with a magnificent vibration they are woefully unprepared to integrate. Allow them to cling desperately to their fabricated narratives and misunderstandings. Your sacred mission on this terrestrial plane is absolutely no longer about rescuing the drowning. Your sole objective now is to stand resolute as the illuminating lighthouse. By fiercely maintaining the integrity of your sealed existence, you unconsciously grant every other wandering soul the silent, powerful permission to discover their own sovereign epicenter. You stand as living, breathing evidence that an entity can physically walk upon this earth without being energetically enslaved by it, that one can exhibit profound empathy without becoming a vulnerable sponge, and remain fiercely present in the chaotic moment without being violently devoured by it. At this exact moment, I urge you to inscribe the declaration. My timeline is completely sealed into the comment section below. Do not mistake this for a trivial social media engagement tactic. Rather, it is a vital, public proclamation of your ultimate cosmic independence within the vast, interconnected architecture of the quantum matrix. The physical act of documenting your ironclad intention and embedding it into a collective reservoir of unified consciousness establishes an indelible, permanent archive. It serves as your majestic, sovereign autograph upon the radically upgraded contract of your new existence. As your fingers spell out those powerful syllables, consciously tap into the monumental, shared fortitude of countless other awakened beings who are simultaneously anchoring themselves into this exact same elevated octave. You are officially being inducted into an elite network of untouchable souls, a formidable grid of highly stabilized vibrations that flatly refuse to negotiate with the dying, archaic paradigm. Together, we are meticulously constructing the architecture of a reborn world, and we are accomplishing this monumental feat not through loud, chaotic protests or exhausting attempts at mass persuasion, but through the blinding, unassailable magnitude of our own unified coherence. The specific energetic gateway of tonight's transmission is slowly drawing to a close, yet the protective seal you have forged is absolutely eternal. You have successfully stepped across the ultimate threshold. You have finally acknowledged the grand architect residing within, and you have ruthlessly rooted the unyielding power of the monad deep into your cellular biology. The exhausting energetic hemorrhages are permanently repaired. The era of external static and interference is utterly annihilated. You are officially functioning from a supreme, elevated matrix that exclusively registers pure truth and unshakable integrity. Carry this profound, heavy tranquility directly into your dream state tonight. Bring it with you as you awaken into the dawn of tomorrow. Whenever the chaotic external illusion desperately attempts to drag you backward into the exhausting arena of compromise, forcefully recall the grounding, somatic sensation of your palms pressed firmly against your heart center, and reignite the commanding resonance of the decree you just unleashed into the ether. You are no longer a shattered, wandering shard of consciousness. You are the radiant source itself. You are not a weary traveler enduring an endless journey. You are the ultimate, glorious destination. The infinite cosmos has officially ratified this undeniable truth. The quantum field has securely locked it into the physical dimension. Your magnificent rebirth as a truly untouchable being has irrevocably commenced. The cosmic initiation is now finalized. Welcome to the infinite majesty of the Unified One. Your unshakable vibrational resonance is your impenetrable fortress, and from this exact millisecond into eternity, it stands as your absolute, supreme command.